We are live. Go.
Hello, I'm David Pistrui with Automation Alley Research and Development. Welcome to our next podcast. Tonight, I'm going to be joined by Daryl Klenke and Nassif Reyes, and we're going to talk about co-op education. So, Nassif, welcome to our podcast. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. This is great.
Well, let's get right into it. Let's start out with what's the current state of co-op education? Is it keeping paces with the advances and disruptions of Industry 4.0 and engineering education reform, Nassif?
That's an interesting question. The biggest problem with co-op education is that we really don't understand how people learn through the co-op education. If you ask a lot of people, most of them will tell you that it's important, but very few can articulate why. It's probably the least understood element of engineering education. So is it keeping with the advances in Industry 4.0? Well, we have to know what it is first, but no, it's not. It's still this kind of like nebulous connecting students with industry and hoping for the best, and a lot of the current advances in information technology and AI and trying to understand the human mind, and that has not been really incorporated in it.
Okay. Well, Dr. Reyes, Nassif, you're a professor at the University of Detroit Mercy in the engineering school, mechanical engineering. And Detroit Mercy has a long history of co-op education. And I know you have a new piece of research that's being published this month. What are some of the key takeaways that you discovered in your work around this research?
We started employing this the TTI assessment suite to try to understand students and try to help them find their way through education. And we looked back, after 2 years and saying, hey, we got this treasure trove of data, and we had the permissions to use it for research purposes, and we asked the students to reflect on their time in the co-op. So we said, let's just try to put the two together. Let's see what happens before students will go on co-op and after, because we administer that assessment twice, before and after, and then kind of correlate it to their experiences. And there were some striking findings. For example, one of the key takeaway is that students are very impressionable at a very young age. Mm-hmm. If they're put in a very difficult situation, what we termed as a no-win conflict, it tends to damage them. So there is a significant reduction in how they view their abilities to handle or manage conflicts. There was a significant reduction in how they appreciate others, but that reduction was not uniform by any mean. It was some of them had very significant increases. Mm-hmm. It was those who had what we identified as having a bad experience from a conflict that showed that they pulled back on their self-efficacy, and they were kind of like, So the main takeaway really for me is that we need to look harder, we need to look earlier, and we need to make sure we get everybody on board before we throw the student into this experience and hope for the best.
Okay.
So I have a question for you from my industry pals out there. So if I'm going to take a co-op, do I have to treat them with kid gloves? If I'm afraid I'm going to damage them through conflict, put them in a real world situation. What do you think? Can they handle that kind of thing?
Remarkably, our finding was that, okay, so we created something called the conflict level, right? Where 0 was no conflict, 3 or 2 being like run-of-the-mill regular conflicts you would expect, and 4 being no-win conflicts, right? So the people who experienced no conflicts were all over the maps, right? They really didn't develop anything. It was those guys in the 2 range that showed the most increase in their abilities to handle conflict, and then it just took a nosedive toward the people who were in no conflict zone just pulled back. So no, conflict is important. No-win conflicts is not.
I got you. So you want me to give them a little challenge, just don't put them in an impossible situation that even my regular employees couldn't deal with.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Especially they're trying to find their way. They're 5 years out of high school or out of 8th grade, and
Yeah.
Well, I've got a question for both of you. Typically co-op education is associated with big OEMs and tier 1 and 2 suppliers. Is there a home or a place for co-op education in small and medium-sized enterprises? Let's start with Nassif, and then we'll come back to Daryl.
Oh, I think for the initial co-op, the early co-op when they're in the end of freshman year or sophomore year, I think putting them in a large corporation is not as does not help their development as much as putting them in a small company. Before if students are not able to see the big picture anyway because of their lack of development, and then you put them into a microscopic portion of a huge design project, and they get even more myopic. So you want them to see. So for example, I tried to push my students, like, if you're not able to get a co-op, I want you to go try to find a employment for the first one in freshman year in a machine shop. Just see how things are made. We have a number of students who are working with GM on the PPE project. That's kind of a small environment because they're seeing the entire operation.
Well, that gives them some great experience and insights, and it's certainly reflective of the Jesuit traditions of Detroit Mercy. Carol, how do you see it from an industry side? Do you think there's a place for co-op in small and medium-sized enterprises?
Oh, for sure. I worked for many years at an OEM, and I worked also for many years at a real small place. I had 50 engineers total. And I will say at the smaller company, the co-op experience, they get to see many more aspects of what engineering is about. They can see the entire spectrum from the shipping dock to the to quoting to delivering on the engineering. So and they're really, really useful there as well. They'll be involved. They can shadow an engineer. So small companies, a good co-op in a small company, worth their weight in gold. From the OEM side, I will admit, just as Nassif said, sometimes the tasks are so segmented and narrow that it's tough to give that co-op a good broad spectrum of what engineering is all about. You kind of get stuck in a departmental mode. On the other hand, you get to learn what a big company has to offer. So pluses and minuses to both. So I would encourage, personally, I would encourage the small company experience if you can find it. Okay,
last question. What insights and suggestions would you offer to industry in relationship to improving the quality of the co-op experience, Nassif, based upon this research?
If I have my choice, I would reach out to them and ask them to see co-op education as corporate citizenship instead of a talent pipeline. So you're really a partner in educating these kids, and in the process, they're doing some work for you instead of just, do some work and whatever you can learn, you learn, right? So they need to be, if it's intentional, like this is something we're doing, that the old adage of doing well by doing good, So it's a mindset. It might not change a lot of things, but I think it'll change them in a critical way.
Good. Daryl,
Yep.
what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll just add, I've had the opportunity to teach senior design courses that had multi-school involvement. A school that had co-op, Detroit Mercy, of course, and then others who did not. The difference between the maturity level of the students was really, really noticeable. Just the fact that the co-op student had been involved, got a paycheck, knew what it was like to work with others, be involved in that corporate world. I would think an employer, if you have an opportunity to hire a student that comes from a co-op school, or even if they've had an internship or two, that student's going to onboard to your company much faster than a student that has not had that experience. It's a remarkable difference. As Nassif said, just the development of these students in 4 years is amazing, and co-op really moves that along.
Great. Well, I thank both of you for your time, and this wraps up our latest Automation Alley R&D podcast, and we will see you next time. Thanks.
All right, sounds great.
Thank you.